It's Motivation Monday, a new week. A fresh start and another opportunity to level up. This is your moment to reset your mindset, refocus your energy, and realign with your purpose. Whatever didn't work last week, that's done. Today you move differently, stronger, smarter, more disciplined, because growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure and consistency, and showing up when it's hard. No excuses, no distractions, just elevation. The grind starts now, the discipline kicks in today. And the results, that's on you. Every move you make this week is building something bigger. So set the tone today, or spend the rest of the week trying to catch up. Because every Monday is a chance to rewrite your story, to step into a new version of yourself. This isn't just another week. This is your rebirth, Motivation Monday, powered by the Final Boss.
Welcome. Let's do that again. Welcome. It is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday. Let's get fired up, man. It's Motivation Monday. We are in the building. Listen, I got something very important to tell you tonight. I have something very important to tell you, right? Actually, I have a lot to tell you. Tonight. That's important. So, but before we get into it, man, listen, is this your first time here? This is the Final Boss podcast. I am the one, the only, the Final Boss, right? That's who I am. You're the smarts, motivators, Final Bosses, and warriors, right? Shout out to you for joining us. Yes, I have something very important to tell you tonight. Actually, like I said earlier, I got a lot of things to tell you. But before we do that, man, look, let's get into the admin notes. Go pick up Go Time 1. All aboard the Fired Up train. Go Time 2 is coming out on Thursday, where all books are sold. Go Time 2 is coming out on Thursday, where all books are sold. Go Time 2. The train has left the station. Right? Now, the greeting of the day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is for entertainment purposes only, and this is the Final Boss. Man, look, this is season 4, the Rebirth, Arc 5, the Declaration, and episode number 283. We are 17 episodes away from episode 300. Yep, we are fired up. Let's get the fired up train going. I see you, Jacondi. Thank you for being in the building. Let's get the fired up train going, man. Look, it is Motivation Monday. That's what we do on Motivation Monday. We get it fired up with the fired up train, man. We're gonna get right into it in a few minutes, man. Listen, it is go time, baby. It's go time. Go time 2 is coming out on Thursday. Go time 2 is coming out on Thursday. The train has left the station. If you haven't gotten Go Time 1, get the link is right there. Go get Go Time 1, all aboard the fired up train. Both books. You need both books because they're written into a succession of each other, right? You're not going to understand Go Time 2 if you don't have Go Time 1. You need both books. It's like trying to watch The Empire Strikes Back and you didn't see the first movie, right? If you didn't see the first movie. Yeah, just like that, man. Just like that. And then Go Time 3 is coming out. Go Time 3 will be out before you know it, because time is not waiting for anyone. Now, like I said before, I have something very important to tell you. That wasn't it, right? That was not it. But you know what? We're going to get ready and get into it, because time waits again for no one, right? So, somebody right now in this room has declared the same goal 3 times this year. Yeah, one of y'all. I did that on purpose. Listen, one of you has done this, right? And it wasn't about you worked on something 3 times this year. You declared it 3 times this year, right? You posted about it. You told the group chat. You told your family. You stood up to family dinner and said, this is the year, right? You made the announcement. You got the applause. You felt the rush of everybody believing in you for about 6 days and then quietly left it to die in a drawer next to the version from January and the version from last September. And here's the part that nobody wants to hear tonight. You don't get to do it again. Nope, you do not get to do that again, right? Because a declaration is not a vibe. It is not a mood you get to revisit whenever your motivation resets. The first time you stand up and say, I'm building this, we expect it. Or you may say, I'm done with that. We expect it. Or this is who I am now. We expect that, right? This statement carries weight because it's the first time your word has been put on the table, people. People lean in. It's time to get locked in, right? It's time to get locked in. They believed you. I believed you. And you broke my heart. My heart. Right? Because belief is free the first time. But the second time you make the exact same declaration without the first ever landing, you're not inspiring anybody anymore. You're training the room to stop listening to you, right? And that's exactly what is happening, right? Think about the last time somebody told you they were finally doing something. Oh, you know what? Let me get rid of the banners. Let me get rid of the banners. Banners, where are you? Come here, little banner. Banners out of here, right? When was the last time somebody told you they were finally doing something, right? And then they did it again for the second time, for the third time, right? Did you feel inspired? Did you? Right? Or did you or did some quiet part of you go, sure, we'll see? That reaction right there, that little internal eye roll, that's what repeat declarations build into people around you, right? And worst of all, that's what they build in you towards yourself, right? You start losing trust in your own word before anybody else does. But tonight, yes. Tonight, man, we are going to be talking about it. And it's not a pep talk. We're going to be talking about dreaming bigger, right? You already know how to dream, right? Tonight is about the discipline most people skip. Understanding that a declaration is a one-time transaction with your own credibility, and you either crash in it by moving or you burn it by repeating yourself, right? We're going deep on this one, right? Some feelings may be hurt, right? When the second declaration actually comes from, we're going to talk about that. Who benefits when you keep announcing instead of finishing? When it's quietly costing you in the rooms you're not even in. And by the end of this hour, all 4 of you, my smarts, motivators, final bosses, and warriors, right? You guys, all of you, right? Smarts first. Thinking 3 moves ahead. Final bosses, building empires in silence and noise. Motivators standing on platforms trying to move rooms. Warriors grinding through the parts nobody claps for when you're walking away with 5-step frameworks, right? From the Go Time series, by the way, right? So the next declaration you make is the last time you ever have to make it, right? No more group chat announcements that quietly disappear. No more New Year's versions of you that never shows up on February 1st, right? Tonight, we build the version of you whose word is the finished product, not the preview. So let's buckle in. Let's get locked in, right? This is Motivation Mondays, episode number 283, season 4, the Rebirth, Arc 5, the Declaration. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into it, right? Before we go any further, right? Listen. This is the brass tacks. Right? And tonight's brass tacks comes from none other than moi, right? And here it is. A declaration you repeat is a confession you haven't finished making. I'm going to say that one more time for those in the back. A declaration, yeah, you talking to you that's in the back, right? A declaration you repeat is a confession you haven't finished making, right? Let's sit with that for a second, right? Sit with it for a second. Ponder it, right? Write it down. Because everything for the next couple of minutes builds off of the brass tacks, right? And here's what the brass tacks means for anyone new to the show. Every episode of Motivation Mondays or any other of the shows, right, carries one governing quote. One piece of doctrine that sits above the whole conversation like a ceiling. Tonight's ceiling is this. Repetition of a declaration is not persistence. It's confession. It's your own mouth telling you and telling on you, right? Telling everybody in the room that the first time wasn't real, that you weren't actually ready, that you were performing conviction instead of carrying it. And confession isn't shameful. Confession is information. It tells you exactly where the gap is between what you said and what you did. And tonight, we're going to close that gap. We are going to close it, right? Now, let's talk about who this episode is actually for, because it's for all 4 communities, right? And I need each and every last single one of you to hear it as I call you out tonight, because I'm going to call you out, right? To my smarts, you guys are the strategists. The ones who think 3 or 4 moves ahead before anybody else has finished their first thought. You already know intellectually that repeating a declaration is a strategic failure, a broken feedback loop. Tonight, we're going to make that knowledge personal, right? To my final bosses, the builders, the ones running the businesses, running teams, running households like operations. You understand that a company that announces the same product launched 3 times without shipping loses the market's trust permanently. Tonight, we apply the same standard to you as an individual brand, right? And to my final bosses, the builders, the ones running it, right? The ones who are running the businesses. Yep. Talking about you guys, right? And to my motivators, the speakers, the coaches, the ones standing on platforms trying to make rooms of people towards something better. Yeah, you. Your entire currency is credibility. If your own declarations don't hold, your message doesn't either, right? No matter how good it sounds from the stage. And lastly, to my favorite people, my warriors, right? To my warriors. They're the grinders. The ones in the trenches every single day doing the unglamorous work nobody documents. You are the least likely of the 4 communities to repeat a declaration publicly because you don't talk. You don't even talk, right? You just work. But tonight is still for you because we're going to give you language for what you've already been doing and what you've already been living, right? 4 communities. 1 directive that's going to happen tonight. And that is the next time you open your mouth to declare something, you better be prepared to never say it again, right? Let's build, man. Let's build. It is go time. So, of course, it's Motivation Monday. You know, we do on Motivation Monday. We get on the fired up train. Now, mind you, we got on the motivation train last night, even though it wasn't Motivation Monday. We did something special last night. We did a recap of Go Time 1 and introduced Go Time 2. And we even touched on Go Time 3 a little bit, right? But That wasn't Motivation Monday because it was on a Sunday, right? But tonight, we are getting on the fired up train. The first destination is what declaration actually is. Let's go, baby. Let's go. So let's define our terms before we get into it, right? Because half of the confusion in the people's lives comes from calling things declarations that were never declarations to begin with, right? A wish is not a declaration. I hope to open my business someday is a wish. It has no timestamp, no witnesses, no accountability structure. You can carry a wish for 20 years and nobody will ever call you out on it because you never put a flag in the ground. Because you never put a flag in the ground to declare it, right? Wishes are safe. A lot of y'all make a lot of wishes, right? Then you have the hope factor, hoping it happens with no action, which is crazy work, right? Wishes are also mostly where dreams go to politely expire, right? A goal is not a declaration either. A goal is closer. It has some shape to it, maybe even a deadline in your own head, but a goal that lives only in your own head is still unaccountable. You are both the judge and the defendant, and you already know how that trial goes, right? You always find a reason to grant yourself an extension. A declaration is different in one specific way and one specific way only. It is spoken into a witness. The moment you say it to another human being, post it publicly, put your name on it in a room full of people who will remember, you have converted a private intention into a public contract. That's the entire mechanism. That's why declarations feel different in your chest than your goals do. Your body knows the stakes change the second somebody else heard you say it, right? This is exactly why the second declaration is so dangerous. The first time you declare something, you're spending your credibility to buy momentum. That's what you're doing, right? People extend your belief on credit, but credit has to be repaid, right? When you come back around and declare the same thing again without ever repaying the first loan of belief, you're not asking for new credit anymore. You're asking people to forget you defaulted on that credit. Some will pretend to forget. Some will do it out of love. Some will do it out of loyalty. But something in their relationship shifts. They start hedging when they talk about when they start talking about your plans. They start saying if instead of when, and you feel that shift even if nobody says it out loud. And here's the trap: almost nobody names on repeat declarations and how they feel, right? Because sometimes, or more often than not, they feel productive while you're making them, right? While you're making them. And there's a dopamine hit in the announcement itself, completely separate from the dopamine hit of actually finishing something. Neuroscience backs this up. The brain rewards the social performance of intention almost the same way it rewards accomplishment, which means you can get addicted to declaring and never notice you've stopped executing, right? You start mistaking the announcement for the arrival. But tonight, man, we're going to be separating those two things permanently in your mind. A declaration is not the finish line, right? A declaration is the starting gun you fire exactly one time, right? And the version of you sitting here tonight is doing the firing twice, right? Next up. Let's get to the next destination. Next destination is the first time you said it. Let's talk about it. The first time you said it, all aboard the fire up train. That's our next destination. The first time you said it, right? Nothing like good iced tea. Homemade. Homemade, baby. Look, I want you to go back right now in your own memory, right? In your own memory. To the first time you declared the thing you've the thing that you've since declared more than once, right? Remember the room, remember the energy, remember who was there. Remember what your voice sounded like when you said it, because it probably sounded different from your normal voice. It might have been a little higher, a little faster, a little more alive, right? That's not an accident. The first declaration activates something in you that nothing else does, because it's the first time the private version of your ambition became the public fact about who you are, right? That very first time you meant it completely. And I want to be clear about that, right? Because tonight is not about calling you a liar, right? We're not here to call people out, right? Nobody sits in a room and declares something they plan to abandon. Number one, the first declaration is almost always sincere, right? That's exactly what makes the pattern so painful, right? Because you weren't lying. You were just underestimating what the declaration actually required of you, right? And here's what happens in the days after the first declaration. For almost everybody listening right now, this is what happens. The applause fades. The group chat moves on to the next topic. The people who said, "I'm proud of you," go back to their own lives. And then you're left with the actual work, which looks nothing like the announcement and how it felt, right? The announcement was electric. The work is quiet, repetitive, unglamorous, and mostly invisible. And somewhere in the gap between the electricity and the declaration and the silence of the work, most people's momentum evaporates, right? This is the part almost nobody talks about honestly, because the declaration was never actually the hard part. Standing up and saying the sentence took 30 seconds and felt incredible. That hard part is the 6 months of nobody watching, no applause, no group chat, just you and a task day after day with zero external proof that you're on track. The gap between the high of the declaration and the grind of the execution is exactly where the first attempt actually dies. And get this, right? Months later, the itch comes back. And the same ambition resurfaces because it was real the first time. It never actually left. It just went dormant under the weight of an unmet declaration, right? And because the itch is real, you mistake it for readiness. You think, okay, now I'm actually ready, right? And you make the declaration again, forgetting that the problem was never the readiness in the moment of speaking, but the problem was your plan for the 6 solid months afterward, right? And that's what we build in the second half of this episode. Not a bigger, louder declaration, a plan for the silence that follows it, right? Now, let's get on board the fired up train, right? Next destination. The second time you say it, let's talk about it, right? Now, let's talk about what you actually, or should I say, what actually happens the second time. Because it's not neural, right? It's not neutral. It's not a harmless do-over. It's something specific and measurable that breaks, right? The second declaration announces 2 things at once, whether you intend for it to do it or not. It announces the new goal. Yeah, it does that, right? Sure. And that's the part you're focused on. But underneath it, quietly, it also announces that the first declaration failed. You can't make the second one without the first one, right? Without the first one. Because the first one, being visible in the room, sitting there like a ghost nobody wants to mention, with everybody listening, and everybody listening does the math instantly, even if they're too polite to say it. They're saying, didn't they just say that thing or that exact thing before? Right? Because people remember. And this is why the second declaration lands with less energy than the first. even when you deliver it with more enthusiasm, right? Because you can feel it if you're honest with yourself. The room doesn't lean in the same way. The claps are a little slower. Somebody who believed you completely the first time now has a small asterisk next to your name in their head. And the asterisks are expensive, right? They don't disappear when you finally follow through. They just quietly get smaller over time, replaced by new trust. You have to rebuild from a lower starting point, right? Here's the uncomfortable truth beneath it all. A declaration you don't get back. You don't back it with action, with a set of window that's not declaration anymore, right? It's a pattern of talk, right? And patterns of talk, right, get filled differently in people's minds than commitments do. Once you're filed under, talks about it, right? It goes in the file right up here. They file you away, talks about it. Oh, this person talks about it. Instead of does it. You're no longer a doer. You're a talker, right? People stop reacting to your announcements at all. Not because they stop loving you or believing in your potential, but because you they've learned, right, accurately, that your announcements and your outcomes are two separate categories of an event. Now, I need you to hear what I'm about to say, right? I need you to hear what I'm about to say, and I need you to hear it clearly, right? Because it's the actual verdict of tonight's episode. The first declaration is a statement. The second declaration of the same unfinished thing is a tale, and it tells the room, and it tells you exactly where you and your actual discipline sits relative to your actual ambition, right? That gap is not a character flaw. It is simply data, and the data can be closed. And this is not about shame, right? Shame is useless. Shame just makes people quieter about their failures instead of being more honest about them, right? This is about precision, right? If you made a declaration twice, tonight is the moment you stop asking, how do I say it louder this time? And you start asking, what specifically happened in the silence after the first time that I never built a system for? That question is the entire hinge of tonight's episode. And we're walking straight into it, right? We're walking straight into it. So, all aboard the fired up train. We get ready to jump into the next destination. Next destination, the cost confession. The cost confession, right? And this is the part where we stop being comfortable, right? This is the part we stop being comfortable, right? Because I want you to actually name it right now in your own head, if not out loud. What is the thing you have declared more than once? Not the vague version, the specific one, right? The business you've announced you're finally starting more than once, right? The relationship boundary you've announced to the same person more than one time. The body, the health, the habit you've declared war on more times than you can count on one hand. Me, both hands. Both hands. I'm talking about the cost confession of people making empty promises more than once. This is Motivation Monday, right? Get on the fired up train. Mr. Ray, get on the fired up train. You just getting on board. We're almost halfway done, right? We're not talking about the vague version. We're talking about the specific one, right? That's what we're talking about. And I need you to name those things specifically, right? Because vague confessions don't cost anything. And tonight is about the actual cost. And here's what repeating that declaration is genuinely costing you. Whether you've talked it up, you tallied it up or not, right? It costs you credibility, right? With the people who are closest to you, your audience, right? The ones who no longer get excited when you bring up your plans, not because they don't love you, not because the excitement is expensive and they've learned to budget it elsewhere. No, not that at all. It costs you time, real calendar time, right? Months and sometimes years spent in the gap between announcement and an action. Time you cannot get back. You can't get it back. And you cannot redeclare your way into recovery. And it's costing you something harder to name, which is trust in your own follow through. The quiet internal voice that's used to say, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it, right? Which has gotten a little quieter, a little less certain. And every time the declaration get repeated instead of being completed, right? Look, I'll go first because that's the standard of what we do on this show. I put myself in front of the communities and I don't ask you to confess anything. I have the confessions, right? And I haven't confessed to my and if I haven't confessed to myself, I'll let you guys know, right? I've stood in front of rooms and declared things I fully believed in that moment and let the silence afterwards swallow them, right? And I've done that more than once, right? I'm not perfect. But before I understood what I'm teaching you tonight, the cost for me wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and cumulative, right? It was a specific feeling of watching people's faces do the math when I brought it up the next venture. And trust me, I've had plenty of ventures, right? That second half flicker, people thinking, oh, is this the one? Or is this like the last one, right? The flicker is expensive. It compounds and it doesn't reverse just because you finally follow through once. It makes multiple proofs to undo one broken declaration. Now, listen, when I started to make declarations, it took a while for people to gain. It took a while for me to get momentum and build that trust again, right? And look, this is not me telling you to stop declaring things. No, that's not what I'm doing. Because declaration is the entire engine of this arc 5, declaration, season 4, the rebirth. It exists in our season architecture for a reason. It is not optional in the framework we've built together as a community, right? Smarts, final bosses, warriors, motivators, right? What I'm telling you is the cost of repeated unfinished declaration is real, it's measurable and compounding, and pretending otherwise is exactly the kind of comfortable lies that keeps people stuck in the announcement and abandonment cycle for years. The confession isn't the end of tonight's episode. It's just the beginning. It's the floor we build the rest of everything else we do on, right? Now, let's get on the board, the fired up train, get to the next destination, right? Who benefits you when you keep re-announcing? That's the next destination, right? That's the next destination, right? So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about who actually benefits when you keep declaring the same thing instead of finishing it. Because somebody always does, right? Even when it looks like nobody's winning, right? Your own benefits, your own comfort benefits. And this is what this is the one that people resist hearing the most, right? People hate people talking about their comfort, right? Because redeclaring something feels like progress without requiring any of the risk that actually progresses demands. You get the identity boost of being someone who's building a business without ever having to survive the specific terror of launching one. And trust me, launching is terror, right? Launching is terror. So, because the possibility of failing, it becomes public. The announcement gives you the costume of ambition while letting you keep living inside the safety of not having tried. And that's not laziness, by the way, right? That's not laziness. That's a nervous system thing, doing exactly what nervous systems are built to do, protecting you from exposure. But it benefits your comfort at the direct expense of your actual life. The people around you who are threatened by your growth benefit too. even if none of them would ever admit it, even if most of them don't consciously realize it themselves. Every time you declare something big and don't follow through, it quietly confirms an unspoken story that some people around you need to be true. The story that says nobody actually changes that dramatically is wrong. That big talk usually says and stays talkative, right? That's the safest place. That's the safest bet, right? It is the safest bet. It is to keep your expectations modest. Your repeated declarations, followed by repeated silence, feeds your story. Your once clean declaration, followed by relentless follow through, breaks it, right? And breaking it makes some people around you uncomfortable because now they have to explain why they're not doing the same thing, right? The algorithm benefits. The algorithm benefits. The algorithm eats. If we're honest about the platforms most of us are building on, announcement content performs, right? New beginnings, fresh starts. Here we go again. All that energy, right? All of it generates engagement. It generates likes, comments, shares. And because it's emotionally simple and universally relatable and tolerable, nobody scrolling past your feed knows or cares that this is your third time saying, here we go again, right? Post about the same goal. That platform doesn't punish you for repeating declarations. It rewards you with the exact same dopamine hit every single time, right? Which means the incentive structure you're operating inside of is quietly working against the thing tonight's episode is asking of you, right? And here's who benefits, or I should say who it doesn't benefit, right? It doesn't benefit you. Yes, you. It doesn't benefit you, right? 6 months from now, you're still carrying the same unfinished declaration, having spent your credibility 3 times on the same unbuilt thing, right? The people who genuinely believed you and quietly adjusted their expectations downward, and the actual goal itself, which never once cared how good the announcement ever sounded, right, was the only ones ever going to respond to the work. Naming who benefits from the pattern is how you stop unconsciously feeding the beast, right? Now let's talk about the pattern itself. Let's do it at scale, right? Because you're not the only one caught in this loop. Let's go. Let's go. Stay locked in, man. Stay locked in, right? Let's zoom in and zoom out for a minute. And I need you guys to zoom out for me. Next destination is the pattern at scale, right? Let's zoom out, right? Because this isn't just a your problem, it's a cultural machine. And understanding the machine takes the shame out of it, of you being caught in it, right? Look at New Year's resolutions, right? Every single January, the same declarations get made by millions, if not billions of people in the same language with the same energy. And by the second week of February, the gym parking lots are empty all over again, right? This isn't because those people are weak. It's because our entire culture has built an annual ritual around the high of declaring, completely detached from the system of the silence that follows. We've turned declaration itself into a seasonal entertainment model and seasonal entertainment product, if you will, right? And most people never notice they've been trained to enjoy the announcement more than the outcome, right? Look at social media. Man, look at social media, right? Look at it. Let's do a deep dive and look at it more broadly, right? New season, new me, right? That's how it goes, right? Oh, this is my year, right? Everybody does it. Content cycles through every single platform, every single quarter, worn by the same faces, sometimes multiple times a year, right? The audience doesn't punish the repetition because the audience is caught in the exact same cycle of their own lives. Watching someone else's fresh start announcement while quietly planning their own. It's a closed loop of collective self-deception. And it's incredibly comfortable because misery loves company and so does unfinished ambition. Right? Look at a business specifically, right? Because final bosses need to hear this one, right? And you guys need to hear this directly, right? How many companies have you watched announce the next big thing more than once, right? The relaunch, the rebrand, the pivot, each one delivered with the same confident language as the last. Each one quietly abandoned when the market didn't respond the way leadership hoped. Investors have a name for this pattern too, right? They call it credibility discount, right? And once a company or a founder earns that very thing, every future announcement gets valued lower automatically, regardless of how good the idea actually is. The market doesn't forget, and neither do people in your life, right? And here's the point of zooming out this far, right? Check your lenses, right? You're not uniquely broken for having repeated a declaration. You were raised inside a culture, a platform economy, and in some cases, an industry that actively rewards that announcement and barely racks the income or tracks it, right? Recognizing that this doesn't excuse the pattern, but it does explain it. And the explanation is useful because it tells you exactly where to intervene. You don't need more willpower to resist a culture-wide incentive structure. You need a different relationship to do the declaration itself. One that refuses to treat the announcement as a finish line, no matter how much dopamine it hands you, right? And that's the exact thing that I want to speak directly to you about, right? To all the communities, right? All of the communities, man. Listen, this is what we do. So, to my smarts, you're the strategist, right? You already think in systems. You already understand feedback loops, right? You understand second order effects, the difference between tactic and the strategy, right? And I'm not going to motivate you tonight with hype. I'm going to hand you the framework because that's the language you actually respond to, right? Because a repeated declaration is structurally a broken feedback loop in any functioning system. An input produces an output. The output gets measured and the measurement adjusts the next input. That's it in a nutshell, right? And here's your specific instructions, right? But you know what? Before I give you specific instructions, listen, right? That's also how systems improve, right? But when you declare something and get no result, and you declare the same thing again without changing the output, you've broken the loop entirely, right? You're not reiterating, you're not adjusting, you're just rerunning the identical process and somehow expecting a different output, which you already know intellectually is not how systems work anywhere else in your life, right? You wouldn't run the same failed campaign twice without changing the creative, changing the narrative. You wouldn't ship the same rejected proposal twice without revising the offer. Yet, you'll redeclare the same personal goal with zero structural change and call it motivation, right? That's what you do. Because strategists are uniquely dangerous when it comes to repeat declarations. Because you're smart enough to make the second announcement sound like a refined version of the first one, when it's actually the same unaudited plan wearing better language. Don't let your intelligence become a disguise for an unexamined failure. The sharpest people in any room are the ones most capable of rationalizing why this time is different, right? Without ever doing the actual diagnostic, right? Because that very thing will tell them whether it's genuine or not, right? Whether it's genuine or not. Let's move on to the final bosses, right? Let's move on to the final bosses. Final bosses. You're the builders, you're the empire architects, and this architects, and this one's for you, right? You already understand brand credibility be better than anybody else, right? Because you live and die by it every single day in business, right? You know that a product launch date announced and missed once is forgivable. The market extends grace for that. Things happen. I just did it when I made an announcement of Vital Signal. Listen, Vital Signal is going to be the biggest app on the planet. Listen, Vital Signal is going to be the biggest app on the planet, and I made the announcement of when it was going to drop prematurely, right? And I had to go back and do more work. I had to go back and do more work, man, but it happened, right? The market forgives. The market extends its grace for those type of things, right? But you also know when you make a launch date announcement, whether it's missed, when you re-announce and it's missed again, destroys trust in a way that almost is impossible to fully repair. Customers don't just stop believing on the launch date. They start discounting everything else you say. The credibility doesn't, the credibility damage isn't contained in the one announcement. It bleeds into your entire brand, right? That right there, that's right there. That's a level of instinct that a lot of you have, right? Because you are the builders, right? You do have a credibility problem when you do this, right? But by building louder, bigger, more visible, a bigger launch, a bigger reveal, a bigger declaration to overwrite the last one, that's not how it works. I need you to resist that instinct, right? Because it doesn't work. Not for your company and not for you. Nobody rebuilds trust with volume. They rebuild it with a track record of small, unglamorous deliveries that nobody's even watching, right? Until eventually the pattern itself becomes undeniable. And the big declaration is simply the announcement of something that was already inevitable, not a bet on something that might happen. That's the standard, right? Final Boss is walking away tonight. I need you guys to hear me. Before you declare anything publicly again, whether it's a product, a pivot, a personal reinvention, ask yourself this question. Your best investors would ask you, what have you already shipped that makes this declaration a formality instead of a gamble? If the honest answer is nothing yet, that's not a failure. That's just information telling you the declaration isn't ready to be made yet. Go build the proof first, right? Go build the proof first. Go build the proof first, right? Let the declaration be the receipt, not the request. Empires aren't built on announcements. They're built into quiet. Then announce once the world can already see that it's true, right? Now, my motivators, right? My motivators. Listen, you guys are the speakers, right? You're the coaches, the ones who move rooms for a living. This is for you, right? Because your entire business model runs on one asset that can't be manufactured or faked, right? Not even long term. And that is believability. 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 It's a word. Go look it up. Yes, Steve, it's a word. Believability, bro. What in the world? Look, people don't hire you. They follow you. Or they trust your frameworks because you sound good on the stage, right? Plenty of people sound good on the stage. They trust you because somewhere along the way, they became convinced that your words and your actions are the same substance. The moment that conviction cracks, that very moment, even slightly, your effectiveness as a motivator drops immediately, regardless of how polished your delivery stays, right? And here's the trap specific for you guys, right? This is a trap for my motivators, right? And I need you to hear it clearly because it is very subtle. Motivators are professionally rewarded for declaring out loud and often and with conviction. That's your job, right? You stand up and declare it, and you do it boldly, right? It's bold futures for other people constantly. And that's the service you provide, which means you've built an incredible amount of skill making declarations sound powerful, true, and inevitable. whether or not the underlying follow through even exists, right? That skill is dangerous. And when you turn it on, you turn it on in your own life because you can talk yourself into believing your own declaration simply because you delivered it well. Mistaken rhetoric, conviction for actual readiness, right? And I want you to separate these two things tonight, man, permanently. Start doing it tonight, right? The ability to make a declaration sound true is a professional skill, whether a declaration is actually true or not, right? Meaning backed by a real plan and a real movement. It's completely separate, and it's a separate question, right? And your platform gives you no special exception from having to answer it, honestly. Some of the most talented motivators in this industry have burned their own credibility, not because they lack talent, but because they trusted their gift for delivery to substitute for the boring private discipline of actually doing what they told the room they'd do, right? And here's your standard. Right? Before you make another declaration, whether it's personal or professional, whether you're doing it on a stage or in a caption, ask yourself if you believe the exact statement from someone else with your same track record. Ask yourself that, right? Evaluate it, right? Evaluate it with the same skepticism you would apply to anybody trying to sell you something, right? Those $9.99 commercials, yeah, apply to that, right? If the answer is yes, you've earned the right to say it. If the answer is no, the room deserves better than your gift for delivery covering for an undelivered promise. Your voice is powerful and precisely the way it is because people believe it means something. You have the audience, you have their ears, right? Protect that, right? Protect it like it's your entire business model, right? Because it is, right? And lastly, let's get into my warriors, right? Right? You guys are the grinders, the ones in the trenches every single day. The last community call is for you, and it's a little different than the other three, right? To my warriors, right? You're the last likely of the four communities to be caught making repeat public declaration because that's simply not your nature. You don't announce, you work. You don't post the, here we go again, right? You just show back up. And you show back up the next day, whether anybody's watching or not, right? You bring the receipts. If tonight's episode has felt like it was about something else, something louder, right? More public than the version of that pattern, I want to bring it home to you specifically because the warrior version of this trap looks different, but is just as real, right? So here it is. Your version isn't the public, right? Isn't the re-announcement. It's the private recommitment, the one you make to yourself silently over and over again without ever changing anything about the actual conditions that broke the last attempt, right? You tell yourself quietly, this is the week I finally get consistent. Then the week ends the same way the last 6 did. And instead of examining why, you just quietly reset the internal declaration again. You say, you know what, on Monday, no fanfare, no witnesses, I'm just going to do it, right? Just you, just me and myself and I, right? And you use that same private promise. You've now broken a promise to yourself multiple times, right? And some part of you stopped even believing. Yourself is not even believing yourself, right? Which is crazy work, right? Even if you say it out loud, it doesn't have the same meaning. And you know it right here, right? That's the telltale sign, and that's what I'm telling you, right? Look, this isn't a broken public reputation, right? But a slowly eroding private one. The relationships between you and your own word when nobody else is in the room to hold you to it. And the erosion is arguably more dangerous than the public version because there's no external accountability forcing you to confirm it. You can quietly repeat that private declaration for years. And the only casualty is the quiet confidence you use to have in your own follow through, which doesn't disappear at all. It just fades degree by degree, declaration by broken declaration, right? And here's what I need from my warriors, right? This is what I need from you tonight. And it's not a loud motivation because you don't need more fire, right? You don't need more fire. You've got plenty of that. What you need is a witness. Find one person, just one, and stop making the declaration silently to yourself. Say it out loud to somebody who will actually ask you about it later. The instinct to keep your struggle completely private is admirable in a lot of ways, but it's also exactly what's letting the specific pattern hide from you. You don't need the whole internet watching. You need one honest witness who cares enough about you to follow up. The single change, one witness instead of zero, is often the entire difference between a declaration that finally holds and the fortive, silent restart. Right now, let's get on board the fired up train. Let's get into the next destination, which is the verdict. The verdict. Let's talk about it, right? Let's land the uncomfortable verdict of tonight's episode plainly so nobody walks away confused about what we just spent 48 minutes building around, right? 48, yeah, something around there. And Miss Sheree, I hope you're paying attention. If you're still there, listen, this is for you, right? Because a declaration you don't back with action inside a set window isn't a declaration anymore. It's a pattern of talk. Yes, talk, right? That's the verdict. Not a punishment, not a shame sentence, but a verdict, right? Meaning a clear-eyed statement of fact about what a repeated unfinished declaration actually is, so you can stop mistaking it for progress and start treating it as the exact signal it's giving you, right? And here's what makes this verdict useful instead of just harsh. It hands you a test you can run on yourself before you ever open your mouth again, right? Now listen, ask yourself this. And I need you to ask yourself this thing I'm about to tell you to ask honestly, right? Honestly. And then what I'm about to say is a declaration or a wish. Wearing a declaration's clothing. No. But we're talking about a real declaration that comes with a window, a specific bounded amount of time inside of which visible action has to occur. Action that a witness could actually observe. Not just internal intention that only you can verify, right? If you can't name the window right now out loud to yourself, you're not ready to declare it yet. You're ready to plan. And planning is not shameful. Planning is simply a different phase. And confusing it with declaration is exactly what's been costing you, right? Look, the first declaration, the honest, the sincere one you made the first time was never the problem, right? I said that earlier. And I want to say it again to be clear, because I don't want anybody walking out of the room thinking tonight's message was don't declare things. That's not it, right? The problem was never the courage it took to say it out loud the first time. The problem was the absence of a plan for the silence that followed. The unglamorous stretch between the applause and the outcome where almost nobody's still watching. And the only thing that matters is whether you show up anyway, right? And here's the standard, right? Here's the standard. Carried forward from the community, right? We just spoke to individuals in the four communities, right? Smarts. Audit the loop before you declare. Find the bosses, build the proof before the reveal. Motivators, protect your believability like it's the whole business, because it is. Warriors, find your one witness and stop carrying it silently, right? That's the community. That's the application. One identical verdict underneath all of them is your word only means what your follow through proves it means. And no amount of a better sounding second announcement changes that math. No amount of a better sounding soundboard changes the math. We spent the whole entire episode diagnosing these patterns. Now, let's build the actual mechanism that breaks it, because it's a verdict without a system. Because a verdict without a system is just a very well produced guilt trip. And that's not what we do on this show. Give me 5 more minutes before we go. 5 more minutes. Next destination, 5-step framework. Yes, it's time to get to the framework, right? And then we're out of here. All right. Here is exactly how you make a declaration that you never have to repeat. I'm going to say it to you in 5 steps. I'll give you the 5-step process, the 5-step protocol, right? And write these down, right? Step 1, audit before you announce. Before the declaration ever leaves your mouth, do the postmortem on the previous version of it, right? Even if that postmortem is uncomfortable. Name specifically that thing that broke last time, the resources, the timeline, dependency, the tracking, whatever it actually was. You do not get to skip this step just because the new version of the goal feels exciting again, right? Excitement is not evidence that the structural problem got fixed, right? Now, step 2, uno, and then dos, right? Shrink the window, right? Shrink the window, right? Big, vague, open-ended declaration are exactly what allow repeat declarations to happen, because there's no clear moment where you were supposed to have delivered and didn't, right? I'm going to build my business this year. Has no failure point built into it, which means it can quietly slide into next year with no reckoning at all. I will have my first paying client by the end of next month. Has a hard edge. Pick your declarations with edges, right? Step 3, uno, dos, tres, right? Choose one witness, right? Not 0, and definitely not the whole internet. We're talking about 0 witnesses means 0 accountability. The private erosion my warriors just heard about, right? The whole internet means the dopamine hit of the announcement itself can become the reward. Separate from the outcome. The trap my motivators just heard about, right? One specific human being who will actually follow up with you is just the exact amount of exposure, enough to matter, not so much so that the announcement becomes the finish line on its own, right? And step 4, right? Build the proof before the reveal. Build the proof before the reveal. This is the standard that I gave my final bosses, and I give it to you guys whenever possible, right? Do this first, right? Visible piece of work, and do it quietly, right? Before you make the declaration public at all, let the declaration announce something already partially true, instead of asking people to extend belief on pure faith. The single shift changes the entire emotional experience of that very announcement, because you're not performing conviction anymore. You're reporting a fact. And then lastly, step 5, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, right? And this is the one that everybody seems to skip. I don't know why, but they do, right? Schedule a check-in before you make the declaration, not after. Put a specific date on the calendar right now, today, right now, right? And when you do, and when you do, listen, have your one witness sit down with you and look honestly at what you're about to do, and look at what happens when it happens when you do it, right? Now they're vague, I'll keep you posted. An actual date, an actual conversation built into the plan from the very beginning. So there's no way for the declaration to quietly evaporate into the silence the way the last one did. You need to audit. You need to shrink the window, right? One witness, proof before the reveal, schedule check-in, 5 steps, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, right? That's the entire mechanism. Now, let's get ready to approach our final destination, right? Final destination of the evening. And I told you, give me 5 minutes, and I meant it, right? Look, all aboard the Fired Up train. We are here at the last destination. Ladies and gentlemen, it's still go time. Go time 1 already. All aboard the Fired Up train. Amazon bestseller. Go time 2 drops this Thursday, right? Go time 2. The train has left the station. Drops this Thursday. And look, we're at the close, right, of episode number 283. And I want to leave you with something exactly for this specific moment in this very, very arc that we're in, right? Right? Because the framework you just got isn't just for tonight. It's the standard for everything coming next, right? Because I'm building, baby. This is what I do, right? Go Time Train the train has left the station. Is coming out this Thursday. Marketing materials have already been living in the building, right? They're in the building, right? They're on the net. They're everywhere. The book itself isn't released. And I'm telling you that plainly instead of announcing a date, because the date is the 13th. The date is the 13th, right? And that's exactly the standard, right? I've given you the date. I said the date, I'm giving you the date. That's the standard, right? You heard it first, right here. That's the declaration. Vital Signal, the platform that's running underneath SatDigiNet, is a global mortality disease burden data system, and it keeps expanding, right? Google Play just hit me with some parameters that I had to meet for governance, right? That I had to meet with governance, or they wasn't going to put it on their app, right? I'm talking about real infrastructure, right? Something I've been building in the quiet, and it has come to fruition. As a matter of fact, let me show it to you. I'm so excited. Listen, I'm so excited, right? I don't know if you can see it, but wait a minute. Hold on. I don't know if you can see it. That's my developer app right there, right? Here's a glance. It works. It works, right? It works. That's Vital Signal. It's going to be ready. It will be ready, right? Man, I put a lot of work in that thing. Quietly working and not telling anyone, right? That's the standard, right? And, at the end of this month, exactly 21, no, not 21 days. Is it 21 days? Yes, in exactly 21 days, I start my doctorate journey, right? In philosophy of artificial intelligence. Now you're asking, philosophy and artificial intelligence? Yes. My doctorate is in philosophy of artificial intelligence. And I'm not going to stand here and declare grand outcomes about the journey tonight. I'm going to let you know and let you watch me walk into it, right? You're going to see that I've been doing the work. Just like I showed you what I was doing the work when I went to get my master's, right? And then I'm going to report back with proof as it accumulates. Because after everything we just covered in this episode, anything else would make me a hypocrite of my own stage, right? And my own platform. Now, season 4, the Rebirth Arc 5, the Declaration is building toward episode number 300. And the arrival of the season 5, the harvest with all new logos, new shows. And we are this close, man. We are this close. And when that season turns, I promise you, it will turn because the proof was already sitting there, not because it was announced. It was loud enough, right, to exist without existing, right? And here's your assignment, right? Here's your assignment for tonight. Somewhere in your life is a declaration you've made more than once. Don't make it a third time. Instead, go run to the 5 steps that I just gave you. Audit what you broke, shrink the window, pick your one witness, build the first place of proof quietly. Build the proof of concept, right? Before you say another word about it publicly, and put the check-in on the calendar before you ever put and speak it out of your mouth ever again and declare it, right? Listen, smarts, audit the loop. Find the bosses building solid. Motivators, protect your believability. Warriors, find your witness. All 4 of you in the same verdict. Your word only means what you follow through. Prove that it means something. You don't get to declare it twice. So make the next one the last one. This is Motivation Mondays, episode number 283. I am the Final Boss. This is the Final Boss podcast. And I will see you again tomorrow night for Tech Tuesdays, baby, with the Sensei, man, for episode number 284. And as always, this is the Fire Boss podcast, right? And there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but there's an even heavier pain that comes with regret. I am here. We are here. And as always, be balanced, be equal, and be smart. And if I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is our show, ladies and gentlemen, and we are out of here on the Fired Up Train. I will see you again tomorrow night for Tech Tuesdays with the Sensei. Oh, man, I love Motivation Mondays, man. I love Motivation Mondays. I see y'all tomorrow for Tech Tuesdays.
They thought it was over. They thought the fire burned out. But fire doesn't destroy the chosen. It forges them. Hosted by Turbo, the CEO. New energy, new strategy. Every setback builds strength. Every loss builds strategy. And every leader rises again. The rebirth begins. Season 4. Bigger conversations. Real strategy. Power moves only. Monday motivation. Tech Tuesday. Merger Wednesday. Special guest Thursdays, sit-down Sundays. Season 4 starts now. Tap in or get left behind. Because bosses don't wait, they lead.